What a wild week of NFL football here in week 2. So many upsets, crazy plays, and last minute drives. After the first 2 weeks of the season, we are in for a weird year. We are still in the early part of the season where no one is really established quite yet, so I'm here to give my takeaways once again. But before we get started, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. My first take is that the Saints are legit. Last week, I was hesitant to praise them for their dominant win against the Panthers, because it was the Panthers. But after a blowout win against a very good Dallas defense, I think it's safe to say the Saints look to be a legit threat in the NFC. They have scored 91 points in the first 2 games, which is 4th in NFL history. Derek Carr is playing like an MVP and all cylinders are clicking for the Saints offense. Alvin Kamara is back to playing like a top running back in the entire league. He has 300 plus scrimmage yards and 5 touchdowns in 2 games. He is on early watch for Offensive Player of the Year as he could possibly recreate the season CMC just had. Rashid Shaheed is playing like Tyreek Hill and Olavi is playing great as well. Most surprisingly, their offensive line is actually playing very well. Lastly, their defense is back to their old ways. I am now convinced that this could continue as Dallas is a great regular season team. To blow them out in their season home opener is a statement win. Their next 3 games are tough against the Eagles, Falcons, and Chiefs. If they could go 2-1 in their next 3 games, this team is something to look out for. This is such a fun offense to watch due to Clint Kubiak, the new OC, who has revived this team, and the Saints are the surprise team of the season so far. What is not a surprise is the Kyler and Marvin Harrison Jr. duo is here. After a rough week 1 for Marvin Harrison Jr. and some weird comments by Kyler Murray, all the noise was silenced in 1 quarter. Actually, in just 4 minutes, Harrison Jr. had 2 catches for 2 touchdowns and nearly 100 yards as the Cardinals were up 14-0. Kyler Murray is back to being one of the best QBs in the entire league. His scrambling and running ability is still there on full display. His play extending ability is still there and is still elite, shown on his 3rd touchdown in the red zone. He has been disrespected and underrated for too long, and it's great to see him bounce back into the player we all know he is. Marvin Harrison Jr. on the other hand is incredible, as in just his 5th quarter of play, he broke his dad's record for most yards in a quarter with 130. He is the same generational prospect we saw at Ohio State, and when paired with Kyler Murray, an explosive play or bailout from him is always a concern for the defense. He will torch the Lions' weak secondary next week as the Cardinals could upset Detroit. The run game was great too with James Conner, and Trey McBride is starting to enter top 5 tight end conversations. With Murray healthy, this Cardinals offense is quite literally limitless. I said last week that this defense is holding the Cardinals from being a playoff team, but after this game that might not be the case. They have a top 3 to 5 offense in the entire league, and that bite me enough to carry them to the playoffs. Speaking of the playoffs, teams that start 0-2 have a 5% chance to make the postseason. After an upset weekend, some teams' seasons might already be over. The first upset was the Cowboys-Saints game that I already talked about, but the Cowboys did not look good at all. Their defense was good against the Browns, but when they faced a good offense, they crumbled like usual. This game was similar to the Packers playoff game last season. Dak played terribly, and a CeeDee Lamb touchdown was the only highlight of the game. They played the Ravens next week, and they could make a statement win to reinstill hope into their franchise. Not an upset, but the Bengals are currently 0-2, and even though the odds are against them, they played very well against the Chiefs that had just lost last second. They should be 2-2 as their next opponents are the Giants and Panthers. However, Jamar Chase should be someone to watch. The next upset was the Niners vs Vikings. Sam Darnold had his revenge game against his former team and led Minnesota victory. With their best player on IR for 4 weeks, should they be concerned? Brock Purdy played well, but the Vikings defense is crazy good this year as well. Brandon Ayuk is not getting involved after getting paid in the offseason. And am I concerned about the Niners? Not really, as they have an easy win next week against the battered Rams. However, if they lose, I'm going to start to panic. Last, it's not really an upset, but the Bucs won against the Lions. Their secondary got torched by Chris Godwin and Baker Mayfield. Baker is having an MVP season so far, and it's great to see him bounce back. The Bucs are a good team, but as the Lions, you have to win these close ones. Goff is playing well so far, but the rest of the team is playing well. Next week, they face the Cardinals in a game that they could very well lose due to their secondary. Kyler and all their weapons could do the same thing, if not more, than what Baker just did. If the Lions fall to 1-2, I would be concerned. But I haven't talked about the biggest upset, and that was the Raiders winning against the Ravens. Am I panicking on the Ravens now? No. But I'm concerned for them for sure. They are 0-2, and even though I predicted a down season for them, I did not expect this. After blowing a game against the Raiders, in a game they were up-win, I am concerned. Next week, they face the Cowboys, and if they do not turn it around quickly, they could very easily start 0-3, a hole that would be extremely hard to dig out of. Lamar is playing well, and the offense is rolling, however their defense is not the same. They choked away this game in broad daylight and let Minshew drive down the field and win the game. The Ravens need to lock in and play right because they are about to hit a tough part of their schedule right now. They play the Cowboys and Bills in back-to-back weeks in week 3 and 4, and then they play the Bengals in week 5. Then they have the Bucks and Browns in week 7 and 8. This could get really ugly for Baltimore really quickly if they cannot dig themselves out of this hole and play like contenders. The Broncos, Panthers, and Giants are still in a race to the bottom. The Giants were close to a win, but the Commanders kicked their hopes away. Let's start with the Giants as their offense looked competent and Malik Neighbors went off. He is going to be a star in New York for a long time, and he already shows the passion and attitude you would want from a star player. On the other hand, Daniel Jones was Daniel Jones. He played decently, but it was the Commanders' defense, and the Giants' defense did relatively well as they didn't allow a TD, but got beat by a kicker. Is there some optimism on this Giants team? Actually, his name is Malik Neighbors, and Dexter Lawrence is also a monster, getting wasted on the Giants. Outside of this, the team sucks. Next, we have the Broncos, who played a little better this week, but still scored no touchdowns. The Steelers played normal defensive grindy football to break their opponents down. Will the Broncos season get better? No, because their schedule is really tough and their QB isn't very good. They have no offensive weapons and their defense hasn't improved. Baker is about to further his MVP campaign next week against the Broncos. And lastly, we have the Panthers, who we have the least hope for. Playing the Panthers is a bye week as they might be one of the worst teams of all time. And as I was writing this script, Bryce Young has just been benched after playing terribly over the first 2 weeks of the season. I don't think they win with Dalton either. The Panthers are truly the worst case scenario as the first overall pick of last draft has just been benched. What makes it worse is watching CJ Stroud dominate the NFL. I feel bad for Bryce and I feel for the fans, but this season is looking like Carolina's worst nightmare. The rookie quarterbacks struggle again. Jaden McDaniels got his first win as a Commander, however he didn't score a touchdown at all against the Giants. He hasn't thrown a passing touchdown yet either. He is playing fairly well, but the Commanders are not winning anytime soon. His rushing ability is there and he is thriving in that aspect, but his passing ability hasn't translated. Bo Nix played another terrible game against the Steelers. He threw 2 picks and didn't throw a touchdown. He is yet to score through the air with a passing touchdown and his O-line sucks. I said it last week and I'll keep saying it, but the Broncos are a disaster and so is Bo Nix. And lastly, Caleb Williams played terribly yet again against the Texans. He threw 2 picks, one that Stingley made a great play on, but the first pick he threw was atrocious, rolling out and he threw it into triple coverage. The Bears' O-line isn't good, but Williams has shown he can escape, but he is missing receivers left and right where there is an over or under throw. It is not looking good for the first overall pick. My next takeaway is that Aiden Hutchinson is ridiculous. He had 4.5 sacks in 1 half and finished the game like that. In a world with TJ Watt, Myles Garrett, and others, Hutchinson is stamping his name next to them when it comes to becoming an elite edge rusher in the league. He dominated the Bucs' offensive line and showed why he is such an elite prospect. After taking a year 2 jump last season, we could see a Defensive Player of the Year caliber season this year. He is the heart and soul of this Lions defense and has the case to be their best player by season to end. He could repeat this performance next week with the Cardinals as they have a weak offensive line. My next take is that Nico Collins is a top 5 wide receiver. After watching the Colts game last week, I was hesitant to say it, but after the Bears game, I'm going to stand on this take. Collins is so clutch for the Texans. He makes big chunk plays, and it's always open for Stroud. He has incredible hands and knows where the gaps and zones are, so he's open all the time. Whenever Stroud throws it to Nico, it seems like he's always open by like 10 yards. Even if he's not open against the Colts, he can moss 2 defenders. Collins is such a great, well-rounded wide receiver at his size as well, and he is the Texans' #1 receiver over Diggs and Dell, and I wouldn't be surprised if he had over 1,500 yards this season, and cement himself as a top 5 wide receiver in the league. His connection with CJ Stroud is also very special, and something that will only get better with time. Nico Collins is an incredible receiver and is perfect for CJ Stroud. My next and last take is that Josh Allen is the MVP so far. He has been the engine to this new Bills offense, and he has made incredible plays and runs in both of his wins. In a year where he lost Diggs, people started to count him and the Bills out. But after some great offensive performances back-to-back, Allen is better than ever. He has 5 total touchdowns in 2 games compared to 1 turnover. He will definitely reach that 40 total touchdown mark by season's end. He's having the Bills offense look the best it has ever been, and next week against the Jaguars, I think he will truly cement himself as the early MVP favorite so far in the public's eyes. In week 3 is where things start to settle down. Teams are virtually eliminated from playoff contention if they start 0-3, and we start to see the separation of good teams and the bad ones. In week 3 and 4, we get clarity on what this season might be. And searching for clarity in the most unpredictable league in the United States, it's easy to fall for fool's gold. But I'm here for week 3 and for the rest of the season. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe.